Okay, guys, welcome back to the Let's Get Freaky podcast. I'm very excited. I've got a fantastic guest for us tonight. He's coming back. We are on Sasquatch Island with Thomas Sewid. How are you, brother? Thank you so much for coming
Doing
back.
good. Yeah. Thanks a lot for inviting me back on. Coming to you from Forks, Washington on the Olympic Peninsula.
Awesome, man. Last time we spoke, it was fantastic. Had some great feedback. People really enjoyed your episode, man. So I'm excited to have you back to talk more Sasquatch with you, brother. Very excited, man.
Okay, well, right behind me here, this is a buckwus. It's not a Sasquatch. It's from my tribe, the Kwakwaka'wakw people, and we talk about Dzoonakwa being Sasquatch, the big one, and then buckwus, which is from the ghost world. He's the chief of the ghost world. He's small, like well, maybe a meter high, bipedal, hair covered. And that's one of the reasons why I got into doing podcasts, because I bought Jeff Meldrum's book from him and at a conference in Washington State, probably 2014, I guess. And when I went home and read it, he's saying the Kwakwaka'wakw Indians from northern Vancouver Island, they call their Sasquatch Bukwus. And I'm gonna say, wait a second, no, he would become my good friend, but at the time I was like, what's wrong with this dude? He's got a capital D small r period before his name and alphabet soup afterwards. He's a degree doctor and he's hasn't taken the time to sit with the Kwakwaka'wakw Indians or go to their homelands, which is, a day's drive up in British Columbia, once he crosses the border and interact with us and ask us, what is your Sasquatch? Dzoonakwa. This is what it is, like I told you last episode. What is the other one? Bukwus. That's a bukwus.
So
Small, hair covered, greenish tones, kind of like a sloth. Very quick moving though, like a bird. And it's bringer of bad. So you don't want to be around the bukwus. They'll shoot arrows at you, throw things at you, spear you, and they're sort of a harbinger of bad. So you don't want to be near them. I had a close encounter with them one time. I never did see them. I just could hear them scuttling through the bushes, making a cha 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 noise, and bushes rustling. And I got the heck out of there. I beat feet. I didn't want to be near them. But I know we sort of did a foreshadowing for the next episode a lot when I spoke the first time with you, and we are discussing that I would pick up on the conspiracy of Sasquatch, you
yes, man.
know, and what is the conspiracy? Well, number one, just to educate everyone, I'm a Canadian, and in Canada, we have three recognized Indigenous tribes: the Inuit, otherwise known as Eskimos back in the day, up in the Arctic coast area and northern Canada. And then we have the First Nations, which that I belong to, basically the Indians. And then we have recently, in the last probably the last 6 years, the half-bloods, otherwise known as Cherokee in the United States. They don't have any, recognition as an indigenous tribe in the US, the Cherokee. But up in Canada, we refer to the mixed bloods, Indian and non-Indian. They're supposed to be a French mixed blood, and then they're referred to as Métis. Well, they got recognized as indigenous in Canada a few years ago. So there's three recognized tribes. So everything from my glasses, my dental, my medical, my hearing aids worth $6,000. That's all covered by the Canadian government because I'm indigenous. We have free Medicare basically in Canada. My children, in their 20s, they're both in school. My son just went back, but my daughter's in to get a degree in university. My son, I don't know what he's going down, what path, but he is in school. And that's all covered by our Indian tribe, which is the government gives the tribe money. So we Indigenous people of Canada, three recognized tribal groups, we cost I think it's 68 billion a year just for the First Nations last year in 2025. That's a huge amount of money. $68 billion dollars, if, you guys had that in our countries and split it amongst all of the people, you'd get a good healthy check. But that goes towards the First Nations. The Inuit, I don't know how many billions they get, nor the Métis. I know they get quite a bit now. And then in the United States, we have the North American Indians, which have, here in Washington State, they have the Bolt decision from the 1970s, where they have access to 50% of the marine resources on a commercial and a food fish level. So, everyone else has to buy sports fishing licenses, commercial fishing licenses, but the Indians of Washington State, they have 50% access to the quotas of the commercial fisheries and fisheries, period. They have taken over rivers, or they just told the Washington Fish and Game, bugger off. It's our river, has been since the dawn of our creation. We're going to look after it and put as many hatcheries as we want on it. And we're not going to allow any non-Indians to sports fish on them unless they hire an Indian guide starting at $300 a day. I totally support that. It's control of their land and resources. But to the non Washington State Indian, there's a lot of animosity from them towards the Indian people because of the rights and privileges they get. And then they have their Indian reserves. And, on Indian reserves in Canada, you don't have to buy property. Like it's Indian reserve is a chunk of land set aside for the indigenous tribe members of that tribe to utilize and use at their free will and discretion, so long as it's legal. So my tribe, I lived on my abandoned Indian Reserve islands for almost 20 years. I didn't have to pay land tax. I didn't have to go to my chief and council and ask permission and get permits. I just went in and built what I wanted to build and chopped trees down when I wanted to chop them down and dig holes when I wanted to. Well, we have, like I tell people, the Canadian Indigenous people and the United States Indigenous people, because they have Inuit in Alaska, North Coast, and Northlands as well. And we are more Canadian than Canadian, more American than American. So you can look at it as it's not fair, or as an Indigenous side, it's our rights and title and privileges, which is instilled by laws of Canada and the US. And yes, we cost the two countries billions. So now here in the Pacific Northwest, about 25, 30 years ago, the environmentalists got together and said, hey, let's shut down logging, mining, urban expansion, and resource extraction. We're going to tell the world that the marbled murrelet, a type of bird that's a seabird, will only nest in ancient old growth forest. And the spotted owl is on the endangered list because it only nests in ancient rainforests on the coast of the Pacific Northwest of California through to Alaska. So the governments in both countries swallowed it hook, line, and sinker, and they shut down hundreds of millions of hectares of forest land for resource extraction based upon the environmentalists who said their scientists found that these two birds were on the endangered species list because of the uncontrolled logging of ancient rainforests. So hundreds of millions of hectares of forest lands and resources were taken off the table for extraction and harvest. And towns up in British Columbia collapsed. Sawmills closed up. Uh, Town I lived in called Sewid on northeastern Vancouver Island. We lost our swimming pool, our community center. They just about closed their elementary school down for grades kindergarten through the grade 7 because there wasn't enough people living there because they shut the logging down. And you come to the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State, where I'm at right now, and you drive Highway 101, you'll see in 3 hours nothing but abandoned, rusty, shut down sawmills, shaken shingle mills. The industry has suffered a collapse, and now they export all of the wood and logging trucks to a couple key cities, and that's it. But everything in between those two key cities, nothing's going on. Sure, there's a little bit of logging, but there's no mills operating. And, this is what happened because of environmentalism. So now let's go to Sasquatch. So if the government already knows, they've so many reports. I remember in 1991 going to northeastern Vancouver Island offshore to Alert Bay, where I was born, a small little island by the British Columbia Ferry. I drove up to, after I got off the ferry, it was dark, and I drove up to my cousin's house, and he's carves native art and everything, and he's my good buddy. And so I banged on his door. He told me to come in, and I went in. He goes, "Oh, good thing you're here, Tommy. We're going to listen to Art Bell." This is early 90s. Art Bell. We're going to listen to FM radio to this guy named Art Bell. I didn't know who the heck Art Bell was. Well, the subject that night was some guy who is no longer with the U.S. military. But while he was with the military, he was in one of those desert, huge military bases. And Ronald Reagan had been testing his Star Wars projects, which entailed digging a trench and laying a railway track and then putting, what do you call that stuff? Ceramic tiles above on the roof of this tunnel and then sand of the desert. And you had over 100 and I think it was 120 miles of railway that was under the desert sands. And those railway cars had ICBMs on them. So it was next to impossible for the Chinese or the Russians to get a direct hit on that train load of ICBMs. All they did was pop up their ICBM, smash through the ceramic tile, the sand, launch. So that was part of the Reagan Star Wars project. But this guy was working there in surveillance and security, watching monitors inside these tunnels and outside. Well, the Star Wars project had gone to the wayside. They were just abandoned tunnels now. And he witnessed Sasquatches going into the tunnels, laying brush down for bedding, bringing in animals that they'd harvested and other things. And here he is watching on the surveillance monitors, and he said, it was almost every shift. You would look at a certain monitor, and there's a family of Sasquatch inside one of these tunnels that they had access to. So I guess the military decided, okay, we can't have this. So they went in and they closed the entryways and doorways and they gassed those Sasquatches that were inside the tunnels. And he witnessed the unconscious Sasquatches being lifted up by many men, putting on gurneys, strapped down and wheeled to wherever they brought him in the military complex. So that was Art Bell's show. And I was just like, I looked at my cousin Joe and I'm like, you really think that took place? He goes, oh, yeah, anything on Art Bell is gospel truth. We had to take it for what it was. But it always stuck with me that the government knows what a Sasquatch is. They've done their DNA and everything else, and they found that, uh-oh, in the United States, we now have our third indigenous tribe, the Sasquatch. In Canada, they're like, oh God, that's all we need. Another bloody indigenous tribe to cost us billions of dollars, and they're going to be called Sasquatch. So the governments apparently even in Australia sent military special forces groups to capture the Yowies because I'm pretty sure they've got the DNA and conclusive proof they know what a Yowie is. It's another human. The Aborigine people of Australia, when the Australian continent was identified, they were shooting Aborigines like they were shooting kangaroos just for sport. It wasn't until 1974 that the Aborigine people of Australia were recognized as humans and no longer listed as flora and fauna of Australia. In Canada, we First Nations and Inuit weren't recognized as human beings and were no longer considered wards of the government until 1961. And still to this day, the Indigenous people in different countries are fighting for equality and our rights. And fortunately, in Canada and the US, we have our rights and more. But Australia, they're still in the dark ages when it comes to the equality of the Aborigine people. And so when you look at the governments of Canada and Australia, and they know they have another indigenous species, just a derivative of the human, it's got the same genes and chromosomes. It's got two arms, 10 fingers, got two legs, 10 toes. It's got dark skin. Well, so did the people from Africa when we first explored it, and Australia and other places. And we didn't consider them humans until modern times. Well, there's still that mantra of they probably don't consider Sasquatch as human. They think of them as an inferior species, but the evidence is there. They're human. And like I teach people, to the indigenous tribes of the three Americas, North, Central, and South, Sasquatch, male and female, is our Adam and Eve. We evolved to be smaller, lose our body hair, lose our black skin, lose our nocturnal vision. But when we don't bathe, we get stinky armpits. And that's from the remnants of scent glands that we have still inside our bodies, in our armpits. We can't expel odor like we used to, but Sasquatch still retains that ability as well as the nocturnal vision. And they're in harmony in nature with everything around them. They don't have weapons, they don't have tools, they don't have permanent structures, they don't have fire, they don't have clothing. And there is a little bit of tool use that's, reported, but all in all, they're in harmony with nature as the creator intended, God. Even when you look at the Europeans, the Asians, and other people from other inhabited continents, go back 10,000 years, we were more in existence of harmony with our nature and environment around us. And now look at us as a species. And yet I teach people that Sasquatch shamanism, look at the Sasquatch as what they can teach us so that hopefully we can progress back to what we once were in harmony and balance with very strict laws where we didn't have weapons and warfare. And here we are discussing a president passed, Reagan, testing ICBMs on a train. And that's probably one of the biggest evidence we have out there of the government having conclusive proof of a Sasquatch. We can reflect to the semi trailer and the train that apparently ran over a Sasquatch, and the government came in and retrieved those bodies. And then everyone always talks about Mount St. Helens blowing its top in the early 80s, and that the government they found injured and dead Sasquatches, and the government came in and retrieved them. I don't believe that because I have family that actually live there to this day in Ariel, Washington, just north of Mount St. Helens. And 2 weeks or a little longer leading up to the explosion of Mount St. Helens, the family were hearing Sasquatches running south to north through their around their property. They were
Whoa.
getting the hell out of Mount St. Helens area. They knew it was going to blow its top. So I
Wow.
give benefit of the doubt to the Sasquatch that they're so intelligent, being in harmony with nature and the environment, that they knew Mount St. Helens was going to blow its top. So I don't think any of them got
Hmm.
killed by the explosion. If there was the odd stupid one, it was like that old man at the lake. They got buried in hundreds of feet of and meters of pyroclastic flow. I went there with Peggy a couple summers ago.
Hmm.
I was amazed. It's still it's getting green back and plant life, but it's still you can see the destruction from when it blew.
Hmm.
So with the government, they would have to do everything in their power to suppress the existence or even conclusive proof that they do exist of Sasquatch because they know it's going to be another indigenous tribe. And if that happens, reflect upon the spotted owl and the marbled murrelet. And now it's the grizzly bear in British Columbia. I was a grizzly bear hunting guide for 24 years. I was making 30 to $60,000 a year Canadian being a grizzly bear hunting guide. And then all of a sudden the environmentalists got together and their puppet master was named Ian McAllister. And he said, let's coin the Great Bear Rainforest. And here's the boundaries of the Great Bear Rainforest. And I'm going to go to the Indians and I'm going to brainwash them to believe that grizzly bear hunting is bad and it's not sustainable. And all these lies I'm going to put into the Indians, and I'm going to be the puppet master and puppet master the Indians in their native regalia and their drums and their furs and their abalone shell. And they're going to come with me to the steps of Parliament and get on television and tell the world that we need to stop grizzly bear hunting because it's unjust, it's not right, it's not sustainable. And so the Indians swallowed it hook, line, and sinker, and still do. And they got together. And then when you get Indians, industry, which environmentalist corporations are industry, and because they generate revenue with the donations and campaigns for their campaigns, and you get Indians, industry, and government together in bed, it's an unstoppable force. And the British Columbia government 17 years ago banned grizzly bear hunting by non-Indigenous. No more trophy hunting, no more guide outfitters, no more limited entry hunts where a British Columbia resident can pay $15 and enter a lottery in different areas of the British Columbia coast where there's grizzly bears and hopefully win that tag so we can go harvest one. Those days are gone. My job was gone. Companies went bankrupt because of that. And now, some 17 and a half years later, grizzly bears are proliferating like bunny rabbits because the human force, which before contact was Indians living on the islands and in the inlets, kept the grizzly bears at bay from swimming westward to the bigger islands. Well, through the central coast of British Columbia, the Great Bear Rainforest, well, you might as well call it that now because there's grizzly bears on the Archipelago Islands offshore, places where the Kermode, the spirit bear, the white genetic anomaly black bears live. Well, places like Roscoe on the central coast and inlet now has spirit bears. And the reason for that is that to swim eastward from the archipelago islands, they lived that for thousands of years because there was too many grizzly bears on there, and grizzly bears eat black bears. Vancouver Island, we have a big rock, probably 2 stories high, round, sitting in southern Campbell River and central east side of Vancouver Island. And 3 different Indian tribes have stories about why that rock is there. From the Lehwata people, I can't get too in depth with it because it's not my tribe, but they say that it was the first grizzly bear that tried to jump from Quadra Island over to Vancouver Island so he can go inhabit Vancouver Island. But Kleslagila, the supernatural one, Little Mink, said no. The creator, Eke wanted grizzly bears on Vancouver Island. He would have put you there already. And he said, who are you to tell me what I can and can't do? I'm the grizzly bear, the most powerful animal in the forest. I'll do what I want. So they made a bet, and the grizzly bear jumped from Quadra Island over to Vancouver Island, and his back legs and ass hit the water of high tide. And the punishment of losing the bet because he got wet, he transformed into Big Rock when he cowered into a ball. And that's what that giant 2 story round boulder is all about. So even the native people talk about balance and harmony. That's why we were created, the humans, to keep harmony and balance in the animal kingdom by harvesting animals for food, social, ceremonial purposes. And, the environmentalists, I call them the modern day General Custers. They're nothing but Indian killers. Because every time they stop an industry like logging because of their BS lies of marbled murrelets and spotted owls being extinct, getting to be extinct, grizzly bears almost getting to be endangered or threatened. And they shut down those industries, logging, fish farming, pipelines, LNG, gas plants and pipelines, mining, fracking. Well, whenever they shut something down, the Indians and Indigenous people and others that work in those industries lose their jobs and their revenue generation. Towns become almost ghost towns. Industries shut down, plants and factories. And the next thing you know, the Indian poverty rates in our Indian reserves goes higher than standard average norms provincially and nationally. And we have higher suicide rates, death by drugs and alcohol than anyone else in Canada and the US, all based upon poverty within our Indian reserves. And what causes it? No work. Both BS from the environmentalists. So that's how powerful the environmentalists are.
Hmm.
Greenpeace, I see them climbing over your oil rigs offshore in Europe
Hmm.
and all the different antics they do with their banners and everything to stop industry, yet here they are using things that are derived from petroleum projects. So they're hypocrites.
Hmm.
And but they're powerful. You get environmentalists, indigenous people brainwashed and government together, it's an unstoppable force. And right now, before I went on the show, I was uh, Eco Justice, some Facebook group all over there about Donald Trump is breaking laws. He's forcing states to have drill platforms off their shores. So I typed in there, drill, baby, drill, because that's what Donald Trump coined when he was
Hmm.
getting elected. Vote for me because it's drill, baby, drill and log, baby, log. And, you know, right here in the Olympic Peninsula, you can go down into the national park and everything. And, it's a huge draw, the parks out here. And there's a road that goes down to the mouth of the Hoh River, and it's called Oil City. There's like 6 houses down there, homesteaders. But apparently, during the Second World War, some millionaire United States entrepreneur went down there, and his corporation still holds the permits to drill oil there and offshore. So he called the land holding that he has Oil City. And it's on the map to this day as Oil City. So I put drill, baby, drill. We have a place called Oil City on the Olympic Peninsula at the mouth of the Hoh River that has 6 houses. It needs to be a major hub for the offshore drilling of Washington State. The reason being, the gas here in Washington State finally went below $4 a gallon. And that just happened last week. I've been here for almost 21 months, and gas has always been over $4 a gallon, but now it's, 3.93. I guess that would be equivalent to probably about 60 cents a liter for
Mm-hmm.
gasoline in England and Canada. Because I know that 2.16 a liter in Canada works out to $10 a gallon, because I filled up a 5-gallon jerry can with to the line, and 2.16 a liter that day in northern Vancouver Island during COVID, it worked out to $50 even, $10 a gallon. That's obscene.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear it's even more expensive in Europe.
Oh man, yeah, yeah, it's terrible.
So when we look at all of that and we understand what a gross domestic product is, I don't. I just know it's an acronym and a word, but it attributes to what the country's making apparently.
Mm-hmm.
But if Sasquatch is identified to exist, the environmentalists will puppet master the indigenous tribes in
Mm-hmm.
Canada and the US. And the Indians will follow it, swallow it hook, line, and sinker, because just a select few of them, they're politicians, the what I call honorary mongering, check chasing pigs that go to meeting after meeting to get honorary and stipends and hotel rooms. And they never do anything good for their people. And if you ask them, how many people have you employed since you've been in power for 10 years? Oh, uh, they don't have an answer because they're too busy going to meetings and they're not in their community looking after their people like they're voted in for.
Mm-hmm.
And those select few people get paid under the table from the environmentalist corporations. Yeah, there's some Indians too, the Aboriginal entrepreneurs that get paid under the table from the corporations to drill and log and everything else. But hey, that's life. We need toilet paper, so we need to log, and we need petroleum products, because who walks nowadays across a country or a continent? It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't paddle down the rivers no more like we used to because there's dams in the way. Columbia River has 100 dams plus. So life has changed. And the environmentalists will make it so that the Indians will get in bed with the environmentalists, then they'll get in bed with the government, because most politicians, as we know in any country, they're so smart, they're stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll believe the lies of the environmentalists, and they don't want to offend the indigenous people. So we got to do what you got to say they're Native Indian or Inuit. And yes, we agree. We'll lobby with the lobbyists will work so that it goes through our Congress, our Senates, our legislatures, our parliaments, and we'll make laws that protect Sasquatch. They need to get their human rights. They need to get their land claims. They may need to get their Sasquatch reservations that are vast tracts of what we call crown or state lands. And maybe they move in and start assimilating with us. Well, they're going to need free eye care like all Indigenous people in Canada. They're going to need free dental, free medical, and pretty soon they're going to be like any other Indigenous person in Canada, pounding the tables, going, I need a house. I demand a house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it is. So the Sasquatch being identified, the environmentalists will jump in. And like they did with the Great Bear Rainforest, the spotted owl, and how they're always pushing for more and more federal and state and provincial parks, national parks. They're going to say we need to have all this area we call in British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, crown land, whereas in the US they call that state land. They're going to say that's the land of the Sasquatch. And then when you have industry come in and say, oh, we want to go develop Oil City, we have the permits and we own the land. And we built the logging road, the gravel road that's half paved that leads down to Oil City. And we're going to buy out the 6 landowners down there on their private land. And we're going to put a refinery there. We're going to put the rail line there so we can ship out the refined petroleum products. We're going to have a super port because the whole Indians are coming on board with us, and we're going to build this big super port there. And we're going to have offshore oil rigs all over the place. We're going to employ all the Ho tribe, the Quileutes, the Makahs, the Quileutes, like the logging industry and petroleum industry and other industries do in Canada. And the Indigenous people will be major shareholders in that. But some of those Indigenous people, well, they're not building a super port in our tribal territories. They're not going to put a refinery in our tribal territories. And like most Indians are in both countries, spoiled rotten brats, they're going to get upset and jealous. And they're going to get in bed with the environmentalists. And the environmentalists are going to get in bed with the government. And they're going to persuade them to make Oil City not happen. We're banning petroleum extraction. We're stopping logging. You have to do a Sasquatch environmental assessment before you even think of dropping one tree. And that's going to be more red tape. Costs you Donald Trump when he got in power here in the Washington state. He alleviated a lot of the red tape. And I seen in 20 months when I first got here, you'd see a few logging trucks go by the store on Highway 101 daily, both ways to the mills and pulp mills, lumber mills. But now you see them steady because Donald Trump said, vote me in and log baby log. Well, the identification of conclusive proof of the existence of Sasquatch, and they are Indigenous, it will affect the GDP of Canada and the US, Australia included. They have a big lumber industry down there and opal mining and other things,
Mm-hmm.
and it will shut industry down. And people will lose their jobs already here in Forks because of the downsizing of the logging industry because of all certain reasons. Number one, they logged all the trees out, and all there is little pecker bowls out there now. But anyway, they're talking about, and I sit on Forks Chamber of Commerce, and we're hearing that they're contemplating shutting our physical community center, not community center, but our fitness center, swimming pool, weight room, all kinds of stuff. They're contemplating shutting it down because not enough money is being generated because most of the houses in Forks are Airbnbs. I'm surrounded here 2 blocks from the store by 5 houses around me that no one lives in. They're Airbnb because of all the tourists that come here for 7 months of the year,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no housing. So why would the young people want to live here when they can't get housing? So
Mm-hmm.
they go to the city centers. This is the same old dilemma that's been affecting every society on this planet other than
Mm-hmm.
Antarctica. And it'll be worse with the identification of Sasquatch. It Forks could possibly see a real negative reaction due to the identification of Sasquatch, but thank God they have me on the Chamber of Commerce. I'm pushing to make Forks the Twilight Town, which it already is, but I want to make it the capital of Washington State Sasquatch because it's on like Donkey Kong here. They would get reports all the time about Sasquatches. We went out investigating a couple days ago, and there was just like tracks all over the place,
Mm-hmm.
tree breaks, teepee structures, raft down the whole river with my buddy because he's a rafting guide. And I'm pointing out teepee structures from the Sasquatch, and he's going, "Oh, geez, I've been down here probably 100 times. I didn't know that. Oh, there's another one over there." So there's a lot of Sasquatches here, and so you know, I got to take the not the doom and gloom path and Chicken Little, the sky's falling. I take the okay, let's diversify so that we don't die. So
Mm-hmm.
if all of a sudden conclusive proof of Sasquatch happens, well, SasquatchLegend.com will be springing up like Starbucks and McDonald's all over the place because
Mm-hmm.
everyone's going to want a Sasquatch magnet, a t-shirt like I'm wearing right now,
That's cool,
SasquatchLegend.com.
man. That's cool.
You
And
know,
of course they want
by
to
the
go.
way, I
They
just
want to
paid,
go there as well. They're going to want
yeah,
to be there.
like Disneyland.
Mm.
We want to go to Forks, Washington to meet Tom Sewid, who stars in Bigfoot Girl on Amazon Prime and American Sasquatch at David Paulides this released 2 months ago. I star on that in Amazon
Oh
Prime. I'm
wow,
on
that's
numerous
cool, man.
episodes of Expedition Bigfoot season 6. So when you Google Tom Sewid, Sasquatch Island, I'm sure I got a great, huge Facebook presence, Sasquatch Island, YouTube, Sasquatch Island, even got TikTok, Sasquatch Island, website, SasquatchIsland.com. People come here to meet me because
Hmm.
I'm this Sasquatch celebrity. And can you imagine when they have conclusive proof of Sasquatch? My wife and I are going to be going all over the place,
Yeah,
upstarting SasquatchLegend.com franchises all through Canada and the US and maybe even England. You never know,
absolutely, England. Yeah, for
because
sure.
people are going to want to know about it.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. And I want to go there as well. I would love to
Yeah.
go over there, man, and search for the big guy with your brother. That'd be amazing.
Oh, you just fly into SeaTac Airport in Seattle and give
Let's
yourself 4 or 5 hours and you're here.
let's
You can
go.
make it a lot quicker, but if you're tourist, you're stopping here and there and checking out things. It'll take you 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Like, because we know that the powers that be in every part of the world is money's the main focus. We know that everything's about
Oh,
money.
yeah, that's for sure. Look at me, Sasquatch Island. Buy your hat at
Yeah, well,
SasquatchLegend.com.
we've all got to
Order
make we've
online.
all got
I'll
to make
mail it
money.
to you.
That is the
Yeah,
thing. It's the unfortunate thing of this world is that money is very important to everyone, and
yeah.
we all need it.
Like
We
on
all,
Facebook, with all the Facebook, I have a reputation. I'm the captain, and you adhere to the code in comments, and don't you dare circle any of the pictures I post because I don't condone that.
Mhm.
And you're not allowed to comment about woo woo, orb turning, portal jumping, glyph making, mind speaking, UFO flying, cloaking, Sasquatch. You're not allowed. I'll block your butt right now.
Do
I'll
you
use
think
my
that?
block option
I know you mentioned the
because
woo. Do you think there's anything to the woo side, or do you think what are your thoughts on that
it's
side of Sasquatch?
called the mental band-aid. And early 90s, I had my 18.5 foot water Harley. It was the same price as a Harley Davidson motorbike, but I bought a aluminum speedboat, 18 feet long, 60 horse Mercury outboard motor on it. And Tommy went everywhere. And I was living out in my tribal territories, and so I was in the middle of Timbuk flipping nowhere. And one afternoon, just before dark, I'm like, "Hey, tide book! Hey, good tide! Tide's just starting to come up. I can go to this beach because it's big low tide, and I can tie the painter line, bow line of my boat to my waist, and with my hip waders boots on, I can walk in probably about a foot, 30 centimeters of water. And as the eelgrass is starting to float, I'll see the look like potatoes, cockles. You got them in England, but ours are the size of big potatoes. And it's a delicacy. So I'm just like, yeah, I'll go get some cockles. So I'm sitting there gathering cockles, turning around, putting them on my bow deck. And all of a sudden, I looked over to my right for because I wasn't using it that summer, my 26-foot trailer with a 10 by 10 addition. We're at a good Sasquatch encounter. That's in John Bindernagel's first book. But anyway, I looked over, and next thing you know, 4 or 5 hours later, I woke up, muscle shirt, shorts, foggy, freezing, lying on my plywood deck, sleeping. Woke up freezing. It's foggy. It's dark. I'm like, what the hell? How the hell did I get here? I could smell bull kelp. So I looked over the side of my boat with a flashlight, and here I was in a bull kelp forest because there was a rock underwater that they affixed to, and I tied a line to it. So that's Bushman's anchor. You're not going to drift away in the wind or current. So I'm like, what the hell happened here? And flashlight on, I go always go in my territory where I am. You go in the North Bering. As soon as you get in North Bering, oh, there's Rocky Beach. Okay, follow the beach on the East Bering. And I'm going along, and all of a sudden, oh, I recognize that big spruce tree that's dead. Okay, I know exactly where I am. Look at my chart. Okay, I'll go offshore, get into 20 fathom of water, set my compass course. Okay, I just go, slow bells and in the fog and dark, no radar, just a sounder and a compass. And okay, I can smell seagull poo, and because I had a breakwater, logs going around my float house, and the seagulls would sit on there roosting and sleeping, and they'd poop there, so it was all white and stinky. I could smell that, so I slowed right down. And all of a sudden, oh, there's the breakwater, and then there in the glow of the fog was a flashing amber light. I had a solar powered light on my dock. So I pulled up to my float house, tied up, went inside, got the wood stove going, went to bed, shaking and shivering. It was summertime, but it's pretty cool up there because the ocean breeze. And going to sleep, I'm like, what the hell happened last night? So I woke up in the morning having coffee, and I'm like, okay, I got up from about 8 o'clock at night until after 11. Just avoid. What the hell happened? I saw a long-legged black bear picking cockles, and the next thing you know, I woke up at the kelp patch. So I think I had a terrifying encounter with a Sasquatch. It wasn't a long-legged black bear, it was a Sasquatch, but I don't know. And people tell me, well, go get hypnotized. I'm like, are you kidding? I said, I've been Indian all my life. Rough and tumble, commercial fishermen, hung out with the gunslingers basically, and the rough and tumble. I got skeletons in my closet. I don't want anyone recording those and holding me, blackmailing me. I ain't being hypnotized. So something happened to me that night. I don't know.
Hmm.
Long-legged black bear. It's all I can recall. So I
Interesting.
call it the mental band-aid when I looked into it and tried to get a better understanding by reading and talking to certain individuals that were, in the field of studying your gray matter. And the only thing I can come up with is that what I call a mental band-aid. When someone gets in a plane crash, uh, goes to war, tragic car accident, sodomized or raped, and child molested, you don't see them and they keep telling you about that trauma.
Hmm.
The mental band-aid kicks in, sometimes they need counseling in most cases, but anyway, it's in the back. It's hidden away. The mind, the whole thing of being a human and what God created band-aids it, shields it. So it's not a part of your daily psyche. And if you don't have that mental band-aid, you end up smoking meth and crack and fentanyl, and you're homeless on a street, because they couldn't deal with it. They didn't have that mental band-aid come in, or they dwelled upon the trauma.
Hmm.
And so to me, that's what I think woo-woo is. So when you see your first Sasquatch, it's terrifying. I was 12 years old when I saw my first one. And then in my teens, seen with a few others, and I was terrified. Knees were shaking, throat got dry, you could hear your heart pounding. You're just scared. When you shoot your first grizzly bear, you think the grizzly bear can hear the sound of your heart pounding. That's how noisy it is in your ears, even your first couple black bears. And when you have a charging grizzly bear coming at you and you have to drop on your knees and boom, 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 jump to the sideways and put the fourth one through the so you get a heart lung blow the outside shoulder so it buckles. I've been there. Your throat's dry, your knees are shaking, you're terrified. I even had one time where we had a charge in Grizz on one of my clients when I first started. And back then, I used to smoke home rolled cigarettes. And because Clayton Mack, the big Indian hunting guide back in the 40s through the 60s, that's what he did. And I read his book, so I had to be cool like Clayton Mack, show my clients that because I knew they read that book. And anyway, I was trying to roll my cigarette after I put the bear down and gave him his blessing and thanked him. All of a sudden, my American client goes, "Son, give me that tobacco and your rolling papers." I said, "No, no, 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 I can do it." "No, you're not gonna have any tobacco left. You're shaking so bad it's falling all over the ground." So that's how scared you get. So when someone sees a Sasquatch and it just blows them away, they get so terrified, so scared. Then all of a sudden they believe to deal with it, the mental band-aid kicks in and it turned into an orb. It
Hmm.
jumped through, things went shh, and this big vortex opened up and it jumped through a porthole. This UFO landed and a ladder went down and the Sasquatch ran up the ladder and zipped off in a UFO. It turned into an orb. It mind spoke to me. So it cloaked. It was there and all of a sudden shh, it was gone. That's the mental band-aid. Bunk and bullshit. It never happened. It's a figment of their imagination to deal with the trauma they just experienced by seeing a Sasquatch.
Hmm.
And that's what I firmly believe woo-woo is.
So you think these are like screen memories to protect ourselves from
Oh
these?
yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So whatever you experienced that day, we had that missing time. And 4 hours is a very long time to be blacked out. I mean, that
Yeah.
must have been a wild, whatever you experienced there, must have been
What I
terrifying.
can't figure is how long did the incident take place? That's what really I wonder about.
Hmm.
Because back then and like now, I'm a very knowledgeable bush waterman. So I should have done is jumped in my boat, which I more than likely would have done because I had to get to the kelp patch. But jump in my boat, zip through the because it's low tide but rising now. I can zip through the tight little what I call Poacher's Pass. It's a rocky area, but you better know it. You're going to take your bottom out. Go through there, swing to my starboard, and I'm at my dock.
Hmm.
It was not dark yet when I was picking cockles. I didn't need a flashlight. So 5, 6 minutes from there to my float house, I should have been at my float house. But for some reason, I think I was there even longer and it was dark while I got in my boat. And maybe I got lost in my panic. And that's how I smelled the kelp patch. That's how I look at it. If I'm in the dark in my speedboat and I smell a kelp patch and I'm going slow, I'm going to go even slower till I find it. And there's the bull kelp tubes and the fronds. I'm going to tie off to it and go to sleep. Wait till daylight so I got better bearings if I don't know where I am. And that's what I kind of think happened.
Hmm.
But how long I was in that beach, well, I must have been there until it was dark. So what happened, I don't know.
Whoa, that's wild, man. I interviewed someone from Vancouver Island a few years back, and they were saying that you would see Sasquatch swimming island to island. Is that anything? Have
Oh
you
yeah,
experienced
everything
anything
can
like that?
swim with a heartbeat. Yeah. A lot of people think they don't understand that about the bush. Everything with a heartbeat can swim, even those bloody garter snakes. I hate garter snakes. I'll take on a rabid, mean, wounded grizzly before I take on a garter snake. And those damn things are all over the place out there swimming. I've even seen them swimming. Shot them in the
Oh.
shotgun.
Have you seen Sasquatch swimming? Have you ever witnessed that?
We seen something go across the Cowichan River when we were in there when we first started playing around with night vision optics. Yeah, we seen me and Buddy seen something in that optics going across the river. I don't think it was deep enough for it to swim, but on my YouTube channel, though, if you go to Sasquatch Island YouTube, one of my earlier ones from maybe 6, 7 years ago, I'm on a commercial salmon seine boat. My cousin, I'm commercial fishing, doing my summer job. And I talk about going by the abandoned cannery town of Buttedale and point to the island and go, if you read John Green's book from the 70s, Sasquatch, Great Apes in North America, you will recall an individual leaving Buttedale Cannery and going sports fishing to this island across the channel and seeing a Sasquatch or two swimming. Well, that's where it actually took place right there. So I actually bring the viewer right to something that's written in John Green's book from the 70s to the place that encounter took place of a swimming Sasquatch.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, there's reports. I can't remember. There was a story of a guy snorkeling and he came across like a giant Sasquatch swimming towards him underwater. And he said it was just like this orange, you know, Sasquatch. It looked like a giant ape, whatever it was, and swimming towards him, and that
They
must,
don't
that,
look like an ape. That's the
hmm
thing. That's a misconception. I guess that's a word
hmm
of people's what they envision a Sasquatch to look like. They do not have a flared nose like a mountain gorilla
hmm
nor a chimpanzee. They have a human nose, like mine, Indianish looking nose, and see a little bit of the black nostril, where I can't see the blackness of your
hmm
nostril entryway unless you turn your head up. Where most of us
There we go.
Indians, we're not pug nose per se, but Indians all look like Indians. And and with Sasquatches, a lot of people like they put these big biker beards on them. Like a
Hmm.
Sasquatch, your beard would be a real big beard on a Pacific Northwest Sasquatch, what you have.
Really?
So if I tried to grow what you have on your face, after 4 months, everyone would be laughing at me because there's little stubbles and bald spots all over because I'm a thoroughbred Indian. You can count my chest hairs on 2 fingers and you can count my armpit hairs on each hand. You know, Peggy, when we got together 20 years ago, accused me of shaving my legs because I don't have hair on my legs. I'm a thoroughbred Indian. evolved from a Sasquatch, my species, to be hairless,
Hmm.
really hairless. We just took the evolution a little bit too far, where
I think it's
me,
a
I go
good
to
thing.
the
I've got
beach,
too much hair.
to a beach, and I see Caucasians, especially ones that are from like the Europe, Eastern Europe, Caucasus Mountains and all that. They got like Robin Williams hair growing all over their bodies, and I'm just it almost makes me gag. But I can see a hairy Sasquatch and it doesn't make me gag unless they scent out. But
Yeah.
it's to me body hair like in that magnitude is this terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
And
got too much body
so
hair, man. But yeah, maybe that's because we're
yeah,
from colder climates. I don't know. I don't know why it is. I mean, I've got the ginger hair here. I don't know why. Nordic, maybe. I
yeah.
don't.
But one of the interesting things is a lot of people don't know this. The Gatling gun that was used extensively in the Civil War of the United States was tried and perfected to mow down Indians so that the American people could take over the continent. That's the origin of the creation of the Gatling gun. Crank it and mow down Indians. Well, sometimes I remember one night hearing the sound of Blackhawks and other helicopters. And a couple, three times I've heard it here and I cringe because it doesn't happen during the summer. It's during this time of the year, the off season, the tourists, when the hikers aren't out there and the campers and the tents. And I firmly believe, and I seen a video that was actually it's on YouTube now extensively, but 5 years ago I was flown to Eastern Washington to do a radio show on Sasquatch by one of the investigators that's well known. And when we arrived, I got to the airport. He said, "Oh, we got to go for dinner. This guy and his son want to meet you." So we went for dinner, met this good friend of mine now, but he had a, it's when the iPhones got really big.
Hmm.
He goes, "Watch this, Tom." And it was a heat thermal military in a helicopter. The helicopter is like maybe 40 feet above the ground, above treetop. And there are pines, so it's like Eastern Washington. The Sasquatch is running, looking at the helicopter, turning, looking, hair moving, muscles, arms, legs. You see the calves convulsing and extracting. And it goes to the right, it goes to the left, it goes to the right. It gets to a creek and it jumps across the creek, maybe 4 or 5 meters wide. And looking at the helicopter, all splayed, everything moving. Then all of a sudden the screen goes to snow. 6 times I replayed it over and over and over. When I handed him his cell phone, I said, when it went to snow, the Sasquatch was machine gun with the Gatling gun at the door and killed. He goes, yeah.
Oh man.
The people in the military that's leaked it out don't want it to go public, so I can't share it with you, but I wanted you to see that because I've heard you on podcasts talking about the Gatling gun in Sasquatch.
Hmm.
They're still shooting Indians with Gatling guns in the US and Canada.
Man.
They're just doing it from helicopters now. They do not want them to confirm to be existent. They
Hmm.
know they're humans. They know the DNA, the chromosomes are humans. And you always got to reflect, oh, it can't be, they're apes, they're relic humanoids.
Hmm.
Well, think back to your great, great, great grandparents, what they thought of Aborigines, Africans,
Hmm.
Chinese, North American Indians, Friesans from northern Holland. They're considered the indigenous, but they're still, you know, there's not a lot of people in Holland don't like the Frisians. They're Indians, and so the list goes on, and right now here we are in the US and what's the next one being picked on? It's a human.
Hmm.
It's called an
Hmm.
illegal alien.
Hmm.
Doesn't have Z papers,
Yeah.
getting run out of the area,
Yeah,
so
man.
it's we as a species have to really look in the mirror and start directing our government to start being more like Sasquatch, to be more loving, caring, have strict laws. Don't have laws that some well-paid lawyer goes and bends and twists. Don't have laws in place that government officials can bend it, twist it, will. Sasquatches, after studying with numerous tribes and shamans, They have laws, very strict laws. That's indicative of every Indian tribe I've interacted with in asking them questions and getting understanding of their Sasquatches. They have very strict laws. One of the reasons why we find my investigating Indian tribe friend from Omaha Indian Reserve, central US, found a baby's crib toy some 3 miles away from any home or road in the bush of the Omaha Indian Reserve. It's vast. And he found a bicycle with one training wheel missing almost a mile and a half from any road or house. How did they get there? Well, it wasn't from our children, the hairless bipedal. It was from the Sasquatches coming into the urban edge at night while we're sleeping. They're in our gardens, compost, outbuildings, feed sheds for animals and poultry and livestock. And all of a sudden, a young one picks up a crib toy and squeak, 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 ding, 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 spin, spin, spin. Look at all the colors. And with mom walks back 3 miles into the forest of the Omaha Indian Reserve and they come across one of their clan. Drop that now. We have laws, very strict laws. You knew we do not take from the hairless ones their property, their things. You leave that there right now. Don't you ever do that again, or I'll slap you even harder. And I say it that way because Sasquatches are Indians. I am an Indian, therefore I am Sasquatch. So when I was in the fish camps, commercial fish boats, seaweed picking camps, clam digging groups, there was no, excuse me, Tom, you're not digging the cockles fast enough. You got to really put your back into it. No, they come up and kick you on the backside. You'd be rolling in the soft sands and seaweed. You'd get up and you were met with a blinding smack upside the head where you saw the flash of white. And then you got the finger. You listen here. You're out here eating our food, drinking our pop. You damn well dig clams and cockles like a man. Get down there and start moving that clam gun. That's a pitchfork, and that's like Sasquatches. And that's why we as a species have progressed, regressed to the passive level we are now. Why you in England and Germany and Italy and France, why leniency allowed those illegal immigrants to come in. And people are, oh, we can't turn them away. They're suppressed in their homelands. We got to give them medical and housing and welfare checks, the dole. And now look at the problem you guys got going on. Passivity kills societies and cultures. Roman Empire, Mesopotamian Empire, the list goes on. Sasquatches have been here since the dawn of creation. They've suffered here in North America the influenza, tuberculosis, smallpox epidemics, Spanish flu, as we Indians did, and almost vanished because of the diseases and the Gatling gun.
Mm-hmm.
But Sasquatches suffered too. But they're coming back like the indigenous Indians in North America. They're proliferating like bunny rabbits. So,
Interesting.
but when you look at it, how come we don't have any oral history or evidence of Sasquatch empires, clan territories collapsing? They always have seemed to have been there and still are there because they have laws, very strict laws. There is no passivity with Sasquatches. I've heard the reports of someone seeing the Sasquatch pushing younger ones down so they would hit hard and roll and tumble, being smacked. Even Ostrom talks about when he was abducted, about how the big male Sasquatch, he was dominant. He controlled that family clan of four, him and his wife and his two younger ones, the young male and young female. And he mentioned something about how they were almost like they were terrified of their father. And why? Because they have laws, very strict laws. You just watch, like me, I'm watching a show called series I just finished watching called The Empress on Netflix. It's about the Austrian Empire, and very intriguing. I just love history.
Yeah, man.
But, mama to the king, oh, there's no passivity with that mean old bitch. She was ready to crush anyone that got in her way. And that's what made colonialism so strong. No passivity. It was a serfdom. Yeah, there was a hierarchy. They adhered to a hierarchy. So too do Sasquatch to this day. It's our modern day societies that have contaminated it with passivity. And that's why we got to look at the Sasquatch. I mean, we better get out there and get our Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall interactions so we can save ourselves as a species. So that maybe a day will actually come where we don't need a SALT agreement for ICBMs between the superpowers. Maybe a day will come where they'll say, yeah, it took us a while, but the Sasquatch has led us to understand that we need to put these things in our rocket ships and send them out into space and remove them from the planet. Because with our agreements in place and our very strict laws now, we will never use them. We have no use for them. They don't even need to be in our museums. Let's just launch all that radioactivity into space and send it to the sun where it'll be eradicated and removed finally.
That gentleman's name that you mentioned who saw the family, was that the guy that was taken to the cave that was captured by
Yeah.
a family of Sasquatch and he kind of woke up and saw them interacting inside the cave, the family of Sasquatch.
Picked up in his sleeping bag, but he had the wherewithal to put his coffee and his snuff, a little bit of food, and his rifle in his sleeping bag. So when the Sasquatch came and grabbed Ostrom and threw him over his shoulder, took so
Yes.
long to get to where they lived up the mountain that he couldn't stand up. His legs were all seized up, numb. I've actually been there, Butte and Toba Inlet. I've walked in from the inlet above Butte Inlet. Me and my cousin walked through the timber alpines ice fields. It's called the Hamathco ice field, the Southgate ice field.
Hmm.
It was amazing. It took us like I think we're on the ice field for over a week,
Wow.
and all of a sudden we came down into Butte Inlet, checked that out. Then we went back up into the ice field, crossed over, and came down into Toba Inlet, and then came down the Bear River and to the mouth. And there's a logging camp. We hitched a ride back to Vancouver Island on a water taxi boat and
Wow,
crew
man.
that they use for servicing their camp. But I've been all up there, and I've probably been who knows how close to Ostrom's cave where he was with the Sasquatches.
How did he escape? I can't remember how he got out of that.
He made him coffee. He was making coffee, and then he was taking well, the coffee was boiling. He was taking a shot of snuff up his nose, and the father Sasquatch looked inquisitive and curious about the coffee and the snuff. So he gave him the can, and that thing snuffed the whole can. And he's all rolled back, convulsing and everything. A snuff, it's like snorting powderized jellyfish
Yeah.
with nitro. And that's when he saw, and then all of a sudden I guess he handed him the coffee pot. Now he goes and chugs the coffee, which is boiling hot, and it's male Sasquatch is screaming, and that's when he grabbed his rifle and just got the hell out of there. And actually, as he was going through the opening in the mountain walls, that he could only think because he was like in a bowl. Only way that he came in, the only way to get out, that's when he had to turn with the rifle and bring it up. And Sasquatch had enough knowledge about rifles to know that it wasn't safe to continue on. And but he did feel that he was being followed, but not really pursued. But he didn't let his guard down. He did eventually make it to his boat and get the hell out of there.
Wow. Yeah, that's a wild one. Yeah, man. Have you met anyone else who works for the military that has seen these creatures and has maybe been told to target them?
No, yeah, but I've heard all the reports that are out there. The Kandahar Giant,
Oh,
um,
that's a wild one. Yeah, in
Lewis
Iraq.
McCord Air Force Base, a lot of activity. It's right here on the main freeway called I-5 from the Canadian border down to the Mexican border. And it goes through Seattle and all the other big cities. But south of Seattle, about an hour, is the Lewis McCord Air Force Base. And if you look at it on the map, it's huge.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of Sasquatch reports coming out of there over the last few decades. One of the good ones was a guy who was working on base, but he had him and his family had a house off a base in the foresty area, and he had a long, long driveway and chickens. And he had a gate. You know, everyone in the United States has a gate in the stop where I'll shoot, no trespassing sign. So anyway, he gets off work late at night and he gets to the gate and he's walking up to unlock it. And all of a sudden, just in the bush, he hears thinking one of his chickens. And then he so he unlocks the gate and he's thinking, well, maybe I better go get that chicken. And then all of a sudden he thought, we're way too far for the chickens to be up here. And I guess as he moved towards the bush, something then he knew it wasn't a chicken, so he jumped in the truck, shot through the gate, didn't even lock it. Went to his house next day at daylight. He went back up and shut the gate, but he did see evidence that something big was imitating a chicken inside the bush by the gate.
Yeah, the Kandahar giant one's an interesting story as well. The red-headed
Oh yeah,
giant that was it 7 foot tall? They said, or maybe taller than
yeah,
that.
yeah. It was said to be 7 foot two. Yeah,
Wow,
Kandahar giant.
the red-headed giant. Do you think that was a Sasquatch?
No, I don't think it was a Sasquatch. I think it's that you look at the mummified finger that was found by the in Egypt by the pyramids. It's
Hmm.
that long. It's got to be close to 40 centimeters. It's a huge finger, and it's a human finger. And the government right there, then you look at I think it's Argentina that has the board with a 9.5 foot human skeleton drawn on it.
Hmm.
But there's the whatever bone that is between your hip and your knee. I don't know, a femur or whatever you call it. But anyway, that big bone was put on there and used to show how big that human was. And then you hear the stories of the giants in Lovelock Cave
Hmm.
and the Indians killing them. And I actually went to that little museum, New Mexico or Arizona, wherever it was. Back in the 80s, I was on a look at what we call a took a look when the Indian goes took a look around. So I was out road cruising all through that area, and I actually made a pilgrimage and found that museum. And they brought me in the lunchroom, and they opened the cupboard above the sink, and I actually held the three skulls in my hands, and they
Whoa.
were freaking big, huge. Then they go missing, and when all of a sudden the internet shows up and people get educated about what's in that museum, they mysteriously disappeared. And
Hmm.
it was just
Hmm.
at the time DNA was starting to come about. Because I remember when I was reading National Geographic and they said they had a tooth. Most of the teeth they tried to extract DNA from a relic humanoid wasn't, it was contaminated, it was dead, it wasn't active. But they did do it from one and they found this and chromosomes and things like that. And right away, I remember reading that National Geographic sitting on the toilet, looking up, going, those jaws in that museum, the Lovelock Cave jaws. That's what they got to do. DNA test them, find out once and for all if the Sasquatch is human or not.
You actually held them.
Yeah,
Whoa. And was it just the bottom part of the jaw, or was it like the whole?
yeah, just bottom jaw, and there was a partial skull plate in there as well. Because I put the skull plate on my head, and you could tell it was like big.
Wow,
Oh yeah, and then you
man.
got the Smithsonian Institution. Like when you go to Sasquatch Island Facebook group, you might have to scroll back a few years, but if you email me, and it's on my website, tom.sewid@gmail.com, I'll dig through like I'm a hoarder. I see a picture that I think is like the other day I had someone trying to debate me about trail camera pictures. How come all the millions of trail cameras out there is no good pictures of a Sasquatch? So thank God for Messenger. I dumped 18 pictures on there and sent it to her. It's actually my boss. And she goes, they're so fake. Like you've ever seen a Sasquatch, Lori? I said, wait till you do. Then you can look at something that comes up and go, wow, that really looks like a Sasquatch. Pronounced philtrum. The distance between your upper lip and the bottom of your nose, that little cleft is a philtrum. A pronounced philtrum, 3 fingers to 4 fingers deep, indicative of a Sasquatch. That's why when you look at West Coast native art, namely my tribe, Kwakwaka'wakw, and we depict the Dzoonakwa, the female Sasquatch, huge lips, and whoop, 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 is what the Sasquatch does. And what we do on the potlatch floor when we bring the regalia of carved mask of Dzoonakwa with puckered lips and fur regalia and a basket on our back with my family. big puckered lips. So pronounced philtrum right there. So next one you look at is the brow ridge, is a little bit out than ours. And then you look at the face. If it's got a beard like you, better be white or gray for an old one. But if it's got, like when you look at my most recent post, I got a picture of an Indian in black and white from when they had the glass plates with cameras in the 1800s. So when you research the Indians in North America and you go back to those old black and white photographs, Roger Curtis is a good one. He did hundreds of pictures, thousands of pictures of different tribes. But when you look at those old glass plate photographs, black and white, of Indians, no matter where you are in Sasquatch Island, North America, we're really Jerusalem, really black skin in my language. So that's from us descending, evolving from the Sasquatch.
Hmm.
And then you look at them, you'll notice that some of the older Indians and even some of the tribes that are isolated to this day, like in British Columbia and up northern Northwest Territories and elsewhere, they have pronounced philtrum areas. They have scruffy little faces of hair and they have that Jocelyn black skin. And so when we look at Indians like me that have a little bit of like my wife, when I was wearing my tartan pajama bottom pants I just bought and my tartan type shirt to go with it, she goes, "Oh, you look good." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm wearing my Scottish tartans because I have Scotch in my wood pile as well as English. And that's why I'm not total, I'm dark skinned.
Hmm.
But you look at my sister, she looked like she just walked out of Calcutta. That's the color of her skin. You know, she got the good genes, I got the lousy ones. Just kidding.
It's like my brother. My brother's really tanned, like really tan skin. You
Mhm.
know, all year round, very tanned. Through the winter, still very tanned. And obviously, I'm white and ginger, very
Yeah.
pasty. I
Yeah.
wouldn't.
So this conspiracy of Sasquatch, it's a biggie.
It
You
is,
know,
man. It
it's
is. It makes a lot of sense why that. You know what you shared today. I want to ask you as well. Obviously, we've got the Patterson Gimlin film, and we've got some other great footage of Sasquatch pictures out there. Are there any that stand out to you that you think are legit pictures that are as good as the Patterson Gimlin? I know
Paul
there's a lot.
Freeman footage.
Yeah, the Paul Freeman footage. I mean, that is
I was
very.
on the fence until a year ago, August, when Squatch America, the late Scott uh,
Hmm.
Violet and his wife Hannah, Peggy and I followed them up that windy road in eastern Washington, Walla Walla, and they brought us to the Freeman footage area.
Hmm.
That was bucket list.
Yeah.
And while we're there, he showed me a video where they had just enhanced it with advanced software, and you could see that big male or the big Sasquatch bend down and lift up a juvenile out of the foliage we were standing in at that very spot. And you see the legs kick. It's a couple of three frames or whatever, but just enough to make me jump off the fence to say Paul Freeman filmed Sasquatch. Definitely,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Awesome.
Looks like them. The only thing that got me off was I always thought about the Paul Freeman footage that the fur looked too synthetic. It was too all over the place. Sasquatches are oily. They look like a chimpanzee. They're well groomed. They don't look all like they came out of a Halloween costume shop. And all of a sudden, when I was up there, it was dry as a popcorn fart. It was hot, like 97 degrees. My hair was starting to get frizzy, so I could see why that Sasquatch was frizzy with that dry, almost like a desert dry, no moisture in the breeze that was blowing. And so, and then seeing that enhanced video, I jumped off the fence. Paul Freeman filmed it. That's
Yeah.
bang on. The
That's a
next
very
one is
interesting
the
one.
Independence Day film.
Hmm.
So when you see the female Sasquatch looking behind a boulder, then drops down, then looks up, then boogies down to the next boulder and drops down, and stands up holding the baby, and she turns and she runs out of the screen. She has a almost like a beer belly flap of fat and skin and hair hanging over her buttock, upper buttock area.
Hmm.
Well, when you see, we have a term for Indians, bannock butt. It could mean you have a really flat butt or a really, really big booty butt. Well, when you see some Indian woman who got the really big booty bannock butt going on, actually almost like they got a beer belly roll on their back above their buttocks. So if we're the descendants of Sasquatch and I'm looking too closely at chubby, chubby Indian woman and comparing the two, yeah, that's when I looked at the Independence Day and the oily, shiny skin, well,
Hmm.
hair, well kept. As soon as I saw Independence Day, I remember that's when YouTube first came out. I watched it maybe half a dozen times, and I went without a doubt. The other one is rotten snow, semi-melting, helicopter in the air, you can't see it. Family shooting, plinking away with rifles in the open area, and all of a sudden you see the Sasquatch peak and then run across the open area and behind the bush and then take off again. That one, beyond a doubt, that was military helicopters hunting that Sasquatch and knowing that family down below them shooting rifles, and they were high-powered rifles they were shooting.
Hmm.
Well, they have the perfect cover to snipe that guy with a 30 or 50 caliber. And
Interesting,
that's
man.
what they were doing, using the humans plinking to cover up them trying to snipe that Sasquatch. And I'm pretty sure they got it because I can shoot. One time I had to look for a missing person, and my role was to sit on the helicopter because I was trained for it on the slings, shooting grizzly bears. And my two Indian people with me from that tribal territory open up the belly looking for human remains. So I know what it's like to shoot from a helicopter, open door, standing on the skid with a nylon harness holding you in. It's like shooting duck barrel. And if there that Sasquatch was there, that Sasquatch got killed.
Man. Did you have any close encounters with grizzly bears? Did they ever get a bit too close
Oh
and
God,
any
yes.
close calls?
Oh yeah, I've been hit by their paws. I've been bowled
Man,
over by them. I've had to jump sideways like I was in a bullfight. Boom, 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 boom.
no way.
Oh, it's fun.
Whoa, man. I mean, you see the size of a bear paw, and it puts
Oh
like
yeah.
because we see the videos of bears and stuff, and we think, oh, they're obviously big, but it's not until you
You
see
go to
like a bear paw next to a human hand, a grizzly bear,
go to Sasquatch
giant.
Island Facebook and go into photos. You're gonna see a picture of me with cedar bark red woven headpiece with white ermine skin with an abalone frontlet. And I'm wearing a native design tunic, abalone shells. And on my neck is a necklace of grizzly claws, 10 of them. Me and him had a wrestling match, but I won. It wasn't a good day for me to die, and I didn't get pooped out in the forest floor by him. I ended up pooping him out because I ate him because me and him
Man,
had a run in. But it happened. Black bears are worse. If black
I've
bears,
heard that.
I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. I've had one launch, grab me there, and pig stuckered with my pig stickers, plugged his eyes out, poked him out. He let go of me. I ran back to the logging camp, ran into the community hall, pool table, and weight room and TV. Who's got a gun? I just took the eyes out of a black bear that just launched on my arm. Bullshit. I said, yeah, look, they weren't puncture wounds, but you could see the teeth marks on my arm because I had my
Whoa.
jacket wrapped around it. Then they believed me, and then you never seen so many guns come out of bedrooms. And guy gave me he goes, this is a 270. I said, that'll do. And I ran up. Whole loggers were behind me when I walked up to that bear rolling around below the road in the bush because it was blind. I took his eyes out with my knife and bang, put two in his temple
Whoa,
and killed him.
man. Wow. What's the name of the film where Leonardo DiCaprio fights a grizzly bear? I forgot the name of the film. It's a cool movie.
Bullshit in the
He's
Rockies.
he's a trapper. I can't remember. But he has a fight with a grizzly bear, and it's like, man, he's gone if that happened.
I wouldn't want to fight with a knife with a grizzly. You don't
No,
win that battle.
no way, brother. Man. There was another thing I wanted to ask you about, because obviously where you were in Vancouver, killer whales were quite obviously you'd see them quite a lot, killer whales.
Oh yeah, I was one of the first humans to ever do a boat-based whale watch, 1980, when I was 15. I used
Whoa.
my captain's rigid, or not rib, but a Zodiac, it was called, an inflatable pontoon boat with a big, huge outboard motor. We
Hmm.
used to do about 35 mile an hour on that thing. And some people wanted to go whale watching and see grizzly bears, so I took them and made a couple $100. Took their wives out the next day, and they made another couple $100 with tips. And back then in the '80s, that was big money. And I was commercial fishing, so in my time I wasn't commercial fishing. We'd fish for anywhere from 2 to 4 days a week, and then we'd have time off. I was doing whale watching with that boat and grizzly bear boat tours,
Wow,
and
man.
then like you'll see it on photo gallery in Sasquatch Island on Facebook. Even in the website, you'll see my tour boat I used to have. It was got it built in 2004, 32-foot aluminum 12 passenger tour boat. I called that my water Lamborghini because it was the same price as a brand new Lamborghini in 2004 when I had it built. But we painted native orca designs, bow all the way down the side, dressed up like a native Indian with native orca tunic, grizzly claw necklace of mine. And that
Wow,
was a lot of
man.
fun.
Dude, because I don't know why I've got a fear of orcas. I know they say they don't kill people in the wild, but do you know if that's happened? I mean, I don't.
Oh no, they're our ancestors. When me, I've hunted all my life in commercial fish, sports fish, food fish, and I've never scuba dived. I have no intention. It's too damn cold out here anyway. But I've seen things like fishing on commercial fish boats, cleaning a 400-pound halibut, and you open the stomach to see what they're eating, so you know what baits to use, and you find a octopus beak the size of your fist. That was like a 200-pound plus octopus. What was that battle like between that 450-pound halibut and that 200-pound plus octopus? What did it look like? What does it look like at night when I'm on a boat and I see the fish from small ones to salmon to porpoise taken off and it's like meteor eruptions, all the phosphorescence? What's it like being underneath that, looking up and seeing the phosphorescence from the boat going across the water? And
Mm,
the waves going into a big triangle, and then all the fish phosphorescing out. I can only imagine. I got so many questions as a fisherman, what it's like in Kumakwa's kingdom, the underwater god of the sea. What's it like down there? But when I die, my breath will leave my mouth and nose. My next breath will come from a blowhole. And that's when my human spirit is born into a baby magin, a killer whale. And I will journey with that killer whale through its entire lifetime of 60 to 80 plus years. And everything of my questions, I will hear it, see it, feel it, taste it. And when the killer whale and when he dies and the air releases from his blowhole for the final time, our two spirits will go to our heavens and separate. And then I
wow.
have lived in all the realms and experienced all the realms of the world, and then I get to go to heaven or hell. Me, I'll go to hell because I'm a Hamatsa. I belong to Kwakwaka'wakw, the cannibal from the north end of the world. Orange bull, you can just see right there.
Yeah.
There's fierce looking fire of like a cannibal demon 3 times on that bull. That's Kwakwaka'wakw. Got fang teeth like a cannibal.
Hmm.
And around him are his 3 attendants. The hook like a crane that comes out of the realm, smashes human skulls, impales the victim with his beak, and sucks their soul out to eternity. And then comes crooked beak of heaven, humps them, and eats the brains from the smashed skull. And then comes cannibal raven to pick the body to bones. And that's the society I belong to. Hamatsa means human flesh eater, cannibal.
Hmm.
And that's why I have no try to have no fear in my life, and why I'll never use the word can't. I don't give up.
Hmm.
My fridge has a picture of a frog being swallowed by a crane, but the frog's got his legs, all four of them holding onto the crane's neck, and it says never give up.
Yeah,
And
I've
that
seen that.
is the
Yeah.
heartbeat and soul of a Hamas. Why I wrestle Sasquatches for a living now, and I used to wrestle grizzly bears one time.
You're a brave dude. You're a strong dude, man. That is for sure. 100%, brother. Man, super interesting stuff. I've got one more thing I need to ask you before we wrap this up. You mentioned at the start about, I can't remember the name of the smaller Sasquatch.
Of course,
How
oh
do you
yeah,
say that? How do you say that? What do you call them?
look, wuss,
Buckwus.
WUS,
Okay.
buckwus.
Is this what
That's
some
them
people
right there.
refer to as the little people? Is that what some
Or
people?
stick people. Yep. Little
Yeah.
people, stick people, leprechaun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's absolutely right. They're in every culture all around the world, these creatures. and they're like as you say, like the tricksters. And I find it so
Yeah,
interesting that they how you describe them, that that in every culture they are there. They might have a different name, but they are trickster entity. As you say, wherever you are in the
even
world.
Hawaiians even have them.
Really, what do they? Do you know
Yeah,
what they
New
call them?
Zealand. No, I'm bad with the Hawaiian dialect.
Hmm.
Pukulukulu.
But you've actually interacted with these creatures, the little people.
No, I didn't interact with them. I had them around. Let's save that for the third episode. We'll
Oh,
talk about Maquis and the little people, stick people.
let's do it,
Got
man.
lots of
Let's
stuff on that.
because that is one of my favorite cryptids. Like I just
Okay.
find it fascinating. So yeah, we've definitely got to do that soon, brother, if you don't
Yep.
mind.
And don't
Yeah.
forget, we can talk about sea youth, underwater sea monster, Yagi,
Oh,
sea
bro.
monster, Paguis, sea monster, Pumakwa, the underwater sea monster.
Oh,
So we
let's
got all
go,
kinds of episodes to do. And
brother.
when you do your editing, do you actually bring pictures in as well
I
for your
don't.
viewers,
I don't
or
normally.
is it just audio?
It's something I have thought about doing actually, but I don't know. I normally just put. Obviously, most people listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and things like that, but I do put the video on YouTube as well. So I have thought about doing that actually. It's a good idea. Maybe
Okay.
putting some
Well,
pictures up.
anytime
That's
you
what.
need it, but for the viewers, definitely go to Sasquatch Island website.
Hmm.
I got a podcast page. Once you finish this one, email it to me so I can get my wife to post it on there for the
Awesome.
archive. And then we have an expeditions page for the Sasquatch expeditions that I do here in Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada, and here in Washington State on the Olympic Peninsula. We're an hour and a half ferry ride back and forth. And then there's the gallery page of all my native art. You'll see a lot of my native Sasquatch designs. And anything you're interested in, just get a hold of me through email or go through where I work,
SasquatchTheLegend.com.
sasquatchthelegend.com.
Awesome.
It would be, we can ship to England, but definitely, check it out. It's well worth it. A lot of my designs are on t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, you name it.
Awesome,
And yeah,
man.
follow me. And
Awesome stuff, brother. You're an absolute
yeah,
legend. I really appreciate your time tonight, sir. We've got to do this again soon. We've got to talk about this. There's loads more we can talk about, so we've got to do it soon. I really appreciate your
okay.
time,
Well,
man. Thank you very much.
thank you very much and have a good night.
You too, sir.
Halachalisla. Go in peace.
Thank you very much, sir. Guys, thank you so much for listening. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, share it where you can. That is a great way to support the podcast. And we'll be back very soon for more freaky conversations. In the meantime, stay safe and keep it freaky. Bye for now. Thank you very much, sir.